We're back for the final ever UFC card on ESPN networking. Our final card of the ESPN era is a UFC Apex card, and it happens to be obviously the final card of 2025. Main event, Brandon Royval takes on Manel Kape with a flyweight division that obviously now is much different than it was 24 hours ago. The new champion, Joshua Van, defeats Alexandre Pantoja via arm injury, so Van's the champion. Looks like he's going to be fighting Tatsuro Taira coming up, likely for the World Championship, I'd say first quarter 2026. Pantoja probably not back until the end of next year as well. So you're going to get some new title challengers and more opportunity, potentially for a winner of this fight. While I don't necessarily think the winner of this fight is going to be next for a title shot, considering Taira's big win, they can put themselves likely on that same exact card where Taira and Van are going to be fighting to be potentially up next, just like how Taira made himself clear, made it clear last night that he was next in line for the World Championship shot. So a huge fight nonetheless this Saturday from the Apex and our final card here of 2025 with the UFC. So folks, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more MMA content here on Greedo Plays MMA. On Thursday, we're going to have our 5 best bets for this card, and tomorrow we're going to have our PFL Lyon, France predictions for PFL Europe. We're going to have another PFL Africa card a week after Monday, so make sure to join us for that video as well. And we're going to do some content, obviously, with the 6-week break we get with both the PFL and UFC. We're going to be doing some, I guess, off-season content. We're going to be looking at a lot of futures and really outlook videos for the entire MMA landscape in 2026, so make sure to join us for that. Starting probably the week after PFL Europe. So I'll get that all situated and we'll talk about it next week, probably after the PFL Africa video. So make sure to join us for that again next week as well on the channel. Okay, make sure to go check out the main channel, Greedo Plays, Daily College Basketball, and NBA Best Bets. Let's do it. First of 12 fights this week from the UFC Apex, and we're going to start things off with a banger of a fight between Teresa Bleda and Jamie Lynn Horth. Yep. I remember, Dana White said something along the lines of, we're going to send ESPN out on a bang. We're going to give them one final great card to close things out. And there's fun fights in this card, I cannot lie, but they start things off with this one, because of course Dana does. By the way, in the press conference after the pay-per-view yesterday, Dana completely forgot there was another card. And I feel like they only mentioned Royval Kape once in the broadcast last night. They forgot there's another ESPN card. Here we are, though, first fight of the night, Teresa Bleda taking on Jamie Lynn Horth. I'll be honest with you, I don't have much to say about this fight. I think this fight's going to be won and lost in the feet. I think whoever is the better striker is going to win. In my opinion, that's Teresa Bleda. Bleda's 11 years younger than Jamie Lynn Horth. She just turned 24. Horth is 35. And really, long-term outlook-wise for Jamie Lynn Horth, I'm sorry, there's not much of a future for her in the UFC. Teresa Bleda is only 24 years of age, and she's already fought multiple times in the promotion, as she has already fought 2 times, as Horth has fought 5, but Bleda's 1-1 in the UFC. First fight lost to Natalia Silva, and then a win over Gabriela Fernandez. The problem I have with Teresa Bleda, you haven't fought since 2023. Was scheduled to fight Casey O'Neill in 2024. Bleda withdrew from the fight and was supposed to fight Jamie Lynn Horth in June of this year, and Bleda pulled out of that fight as well. So now here we go. She gets Horth finally. We'll see if Bleda actually makes it to fight night. Jamie Lynn Horth 8-2 professionally, but 3-2 in the UFC, coming off a victory over Vanessa Demopoulos. Okay, I'm going to take Bleda. Jamie Lynn Horth does not wow me on the feet. Yeah, she beat up on Vanessa Demopoulos striking-wise. Whoa. I mean, she's going to go in there and try to grapple. I think Bleda's defensive wrestling actually is not that horrible. We saw, again, Bleda's last fight, albeit it was 2.5 years ago. She went for a very, grappling-heavy, wrestling-heavy approach against Fernandez. The entire fight basically was on the mat. Bleda had 3 takedowns, but that lasted her 11 minutes of control time, and she won. We were billed on Bleda as a fighter who is going to go out there, look to strike. She's got some submissions as well, but primary kickboxer, at least she was in Octagon. She can grapple too. I'm going to go Teresa Bleda. I think she wins everywhere, grappling-wise, striking-wise. I think she's quicker than Jamie Lynn Horth, who, again, I can't pick a 35-year-old who is 3-2 in the UFC, with their victories being Haley Cowan, don't care, Ivana Petrovic by split decision. Petrovic, I'm sorry, was a fraud in the UFC, lost to Juliana Miller in the UFC. Yeah, can't take you seriously. And the other victory for Jamie Lynn Horth is Vanessa Demopoulos. who I believe doesn't even fight in the UFC anymore. So yeah, it's not that great of a run. I think Bleda is obviously the way better long-term fighter in terms of she's got a future in the sport and a future in the UFC. And I do believe she's going to win this one. Bleda is a favorite. I think she wins it on the ground and wins it on the feet as well. Minus 185 here for the Czech Republic fighter Teresa Bleda. Just would have liked to see her be more active, but unfortunately here we are 2.5 years after her last fight. I do believe she's going to beat Jamie Lynn Horth, and I think she will get it done by unanimous decision. On to our second fight of the night, we go to a heavyweight matchup that feels like it should be on the Contender Series, as we've got Alan Frye Jr. taking on Guilherme Pat. I'm going to break this fight down like I did the Contender Series fights earlier in the year, and I'm kind of surprised this isn't just straight a Contender Series fight. Alan Frye has not been booked on the Contender at all, but Guilherme Pat was booked against Anthony Garasio. Garasio ends up fighting Stephen Asplund on short notice. We'll get to Asplund later in the video. But Guilherme Pat's supposed to fight Anthony Garasio. Anyways, after Guilherme Pat's last fight, he beats Mauricio Chiores by third round TKO. And after the fight ends, he goes to the camera at LFA and says, "Contender Series, that's me next." Okay, well, he pulls out of the fight against Garasio, however the hell you say that dude's name, I forget. And now, just because he pulled out of the fight and Garasio lost, here's a shot in the UFC. What? And he's fighting Alan Frye, or AJ Frye. I believe he's going to be going by Alan Frye in the UFC. Coming off a big win over Justin Frazier. If you remember who Justin Frazier is, the Grizzly Bear, fought in the UFC once and had a fight against Juan Espino. Got submitted in the finals of the Ultimate Fighter season. Never got another shot in the UFC. Justin Frazier doesn't look like he weighs 265 pounds anymore. Watching his fight against Alan Frye. And in all fairness, I'm watching this fight from legitimately a dude in the corner of Justin Frazier is recording the fight on his cell phone. And it's vertical. Like, I'm watching the fight this way. But that's the only film I have on Alan Frye. His only other film is like in BJJ competitions. So that's all I have to base the Alan Frye off of. He looks good in the Justin Frazier fight in all fairness, right? I mean, he goes out there, he outboxes Justin Frazier. Frazier's coming forward a lot, but it's just because he's looking for takedowns. He actually does take Alan Frye down in the first round, but that's really what I can rely on Frazier to kind of do well in the regional scene. Frye gets back up with ease, though, and eventually knocks out Justin Frazier 3 minutes into the first round. Guilherme Pat's last fight in LFA, that fight was in August of 2024. He beats Mauricio Chiores, who is just a really built guy, but not that great of a fighter, a 4-4 guy going into it. Guilherme Pat, very light on his feet. Commentators mention a lot. You can see the comparisons to Cyril Gane, which I kind of see. He's tall, he's 6'5". I will say this about Guilherme Pat, though. He leaves his chin wide open to get hit. I mean, when Guilherme Pat, it's like what Tom Aspinall does, but Aspinall's good enough to, obviously get out of the way. Or Aspinall's head movement isn't great, but he's obviously a good enough boxer as a whole to, again, make up for this. But Guilherme Pat, when he backs forward, he doesn't move his head at all. He doesn't, bury it at all. He just moves back like this. So if you press Guilherme Pat, and, because he's doing this to stuff takedowns, right? He pushes his head back and kind of just waits for the takedown to come, because that's what Chiores was doing to him in LFA. But every time, and Chiores picked up on this late in the fight, again, Guilherme Pat eventually wins, but Chiores fakes takedown and comes back up with the right and does start tagging Pat a little bit. Because again, I'll make this look right. When Guilherme Pat, again, gets pressured, or, when someone's coming forward at him, he just does this. And, I mean, a jab still gets you. You're still, again, your head's on the center line still. And yeah, you're moving backwards, but that's not striking defense 101, okay? If Alan Frye pushes forward, he's going to win. Both guys got taken down in their last fight, but one guy got taken down by a, somewhat credentialed wrestler. And Guilherme Pat got taken down by a 4-4 fighter who shouldn't be anywhere near him. Also, to me, it feels like, again, Guilherme Pat's a huge dude. Like, he's built. I think he can make 205. Like, I don't know. I know he's 6'5". I don't think he's that, heavy of a guy. They say, yeah, he weighed in at 230 for his last fight. I think he should be fighting 205. I think 265 is not the right weight class for him. Alan Frye doesn't look like he could cut, he weighed in at 245. Yeah, he cannot cut 40 more pounds to get to 205. I believe Guilherme Pat can. I haven't seen much of Alan Frye's wrestling in MMA fights, but I've seen it, obviously, his top control in BJJ competitions. If he's able to take down Guilherme Pat, he's going to have that. I don't think Pat has a great grappling game. And striking-wise, too, I think Alan Frye's actually slightly better. He throws harder. Guillermo Pat, again, kind of swings big. Like, he doesn't fight like Gun in terms of like he's just a technical guy who's going to start throwing things, just he's always touching you. He's always finding distance and finding range. He's just very light on his feet. And he's kind of bouncing for the most part. I think Alan Frye should beat him. I don't think like Guillermo Pat's that technical where, I can stay on the outside and I can just go bop, bop, 1-2, and I can throw a nasty hook and I can load up on my right. I don't think he can do that. Alan Frye throws a lot of straight stuff. I think, stylistically, what Alan Frye does matches up well with Guillermo Pat. And Alan Frye's training at Derek Brunson MMA and Fitness over in North Carolina. I believe he's Derek Brunson's first ever, homegrown UFC talent. So that's a thing too. I'm going Alan Frye here. We get him at plus money, and I like the spot a lot. Alan Frye wins. I'm going to go second round knockout. I think eventually he's going to find the knockout on Guillermo Pat. Give me second round TKO win for Alan Frye against the guy who, again, I believe should be fighting at 205. On to our third fight of the night. Let's go back to the women's weight classes. Obviously, we had a flyweight fight earlier, and now we get a fight in the bantamweight division as we have Luana Santos taking on Melissa Croden. An interesting matchup here. Luana Santos has been piecing together momentum in the UFC. I think she's the type of fighter they want to kind of promote. Again, guys, like, we know what type of fighters Dana likes at times, the women's weight class. There's a reason Paige Van Zandt got such a big push, right? There's the reason Mackenzie Dern has found herself in big positions. I'm not saying Luana Santos is on that level, but I believe there's somewhat of a promotional backing around Luana Santos. Tracy Cortez has always had a promotional backing. All I'm going to say here is don't be surprised if you see Nina Drama doing interviews with Luana Santos, okay? That's my theory. So that's just my theory there, okay? Luana Santos, 25 years of age. She's a syndicate MMA fighter. She's 4-1. She's putting together momentum. This is a fight that can put her higher in the ranks and potentially into a, top 15 fight at 135 pounds in an albeit very, very weak weight class. We know how weak bantamweight is in the women's division. It's horrible. Actually, Luana Santos is ranked. She's 15th. So I don't know why she's fighting Melissa Croden. If the UFC wants to make money, have Luana Santos fight Miesha Tate. It's an automatic fight for her. She'll win, and you get a big name behind her, okay? And if you're trying to push big Brazilian stars, Natalia Silva should be getting a title fight at 25. Luana Santos, I'm not telling you she's anywhere near the level of Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva is going to end the reign of terror of Valentina Shevchenko. But Natalia Silva, Natalia Silva just took a fight. Whatever. I saw that right? Anyways, Luana Santos should be able to go out here and beat Melissa Croden. Okay, I know I took a very long-winded approach to get to that. But yeah, I know my eyes weren't deceiving me. Yeah, Natalia Silva's going to fight Rose Namajunas. I mean, she's going to easily win and reestablish herself again as the number one contender, but why is she filling in for Grasso when she just beat Grasso? Do they really tell Natalia Silva you're not getting a title fight? We need to end this Shevchenko crap at the top. I'm sorry, I'm sick of watching Shevchenko's boring ass wrestle every single time. Retire, please. With all due respect. Legend of the sport, I will say that. Anyways, Luana Santos should beat Melissa Croden, okay? I've been impressed with what we've gotten out of Luana Santos so far in the UFC. Melissa Croden's had one fight. She beat Tainara Lisboa. Looked good in the fight, but Luana Santos has had 5 fights in the UFC. Croden's had 1. The experience advantage is definitely on Santos' side. Her only loss is a decision loss to Casey O'Neill, who can still be tricky. Okay, the Skazi can be tricky at times, but Luana Santos came back and she submitted Tainara Lisboa in her last fight in May. Obviously, Croden has fought Lisboa since then, and Croden got a finish in the 3rd round in her home country of Canada because obviously Lisboa filled in for Santos, right? Yeah, Lisboa filled in for Santos, I believe. No, she didn't. They were just supposed to fight earlier in November. Okay. Regardless, though, Croden beats Luana Santos Croden beats Tainara Lisboa after Luana Santos already beats Tainara Lisboa. Okay, and that's Croden's first fight. Luana Santos has won 4 prior to that. Are they the biggest wins? Not really. Juliana Miller, Stephanie Egger, Maria Agapova, and a loss to Casey O'Neill. Okay. Still, though, I like what we get out of Luana Santos. I think the striking game's pretty solid. I like her grappling as well. Croden, again, looked really good in her fight, right? Knocked down Tainara Lisboa, looked good on the feet, mixed in the grappling some as well. Simply put, though, I think Luana Santos is better everywhere. I think this is a levels thing. The grappling is where Luana Santos should win. I do think she can be very successful on the feet. I don't know if it's an automatic. Grappling-wise, though, yes. Luana Santos is a much better grappler than Melissa Croden. The wrestling should be there. The jiu-jitsu should be there. Croden's 35 or 34. Luana Santos is 25. And Luana Santos has still had more fights, not just the UFC, but also in professional mixed martial arts than Melissa Croden. And again, she's 9 years younger. She's the younger star they're trying to promote. Santos should be able to pick up this victory, and I think again the pathway of least resistance for Luana Santos is going to be the wrestling and the grappling. So absolutely, I think she's going to get it. I'm going to go with Luana Santos to pick up the victory over Melissa Croden here, and I think she should be able to get it done by unanimous decision. On now to our fourth fight of the night as we go to a matchup in the heavyweight division between Sean Sharaf and Steven Asplund. Yes, if you've never seen Steven Asplund before, he is the guy on the right-hand side of the screen. Yes, does he look like a UFC fighter? Absolutely not. But Steven Asplund, and he said it himself, oh, I've got man titties. That's what he said. That don't take my word for it. Watch Steven Asplund fight. He's like, yeah, I'm the fat dude, but I go out here and I knock people out. And he said that he would suck Dana's toes if he got in the UFC. Okay, I guess. Sure, anything for the 12-12 contract, I guess. Anyways, though, Steven Asplund is getting his first UFC fight, and let's just say it, a very winnable spot here against Sean Sharaf, right? Dana historically, at least earlier in Dana's career, I don't think particularly liked, fighters who look like Steven Asplund. Dana never liked Mark Hunt. When Roy Nelson first came to UFC, he did not like Roy Nelson. Eventually, he came to really like Roy Nelson after, because the big country thing was fire. But historically, Dana at first doesn't like fighters like Asplund. I think he's turned a page on that because Dana now just sees, okay, in the event of Roy Nelson and Mark Hunt, these guys are money. Fans like, let's just say it, the big fat dudes, and they have a following. Now, Asplund is a former really fat guy. And I mean that with absolutely zero disrespect. Like, legitimately, Asplund will tell you this himself. This is a guy who I believe was like 500 pounds, right? Has now, obviously, again, I'm not a doctor, but, if you're 500 pounds, that's going to create for loose skin like what Asplund has, right? And he's cut all the way down from legitimately around 500 pounds to 260. So, amazing stuff out of Asplund. I was not overly impressed with his regional career. Lost a fight to Denzel Freeman on the regional run by submission. Denzel Freeman won his first fight against Marek Bulio, and he's going to be fighting Hokit, which I don't like that fight for Freeman coming up. But Asplund goes out on the Contender Series and beats the aforementioned Anthony Garasio, winning the fight by first round knockout in 16 seconds. I thought Garasio was going to win. I was wrong. Asplund basically knocks him out or puts him down and wobbles him with the first punch he throws and eventually finishes him again in 16 seconds. Do I think the long-term outlook for Asplund is all that great in the UFC? And do I think he's going to be a top contender? Likely not, okay? There are a lot of holes in the Asplund game. He gets hit quite a bit. Go watch his fight. I think it was, go watch the Denzel Freeman fight and also go watch the Hammer Morton fight. I don't know who the hell Hammer Morton is. He did not look good in the Hammer Morton fight, and that really turned me away from picking Asplund. He ends up winning it, but it's such a sloppy fight. It's just, I didn't really like what I saw. And Garasio was 3-0 at the time, so I was a little bit high on him. Garasio went back to CFFC and lost his Cage Fury championship in his last fight. But anyways, the opponent Asplund gets this week is very winnable. It's Sean Sharaf, who's 4-1 professionally. I don't know how he got in the UFC. Got a fight against Junior Tafa. I believe that was in Australia, right? No, that was in the Apex. Fought Junior Tafa in the Apex. Lost by second round TKO. Had only beaten one fighter on his record who had a winning record. He beat a 3-1-1 guy for the LXF Championship, which is the Lights Out Extreme Fighting Championship in Long Beach, California. Okay. His two prior wins were against 0-0 and actually a 1-4 fighter and an 0-1 fighter. And somehow he got his way in the UFC. If Junior Tafa can put him out, in all fairness, Sean Sharaf threw back. He did, right? And Junior Tafa, I will say, is not the highest level. But if, Tafa is still finding ways to knock you out, Asplund will knock you out as well. I believe, the first big shot that lands for Steven Asplund probably puts Sean Sharaf out. With all due respect, I don't think Sean Sharaf is UFC level. Asplund, I think he's low-level UFC, caliber. I think he is. He throws hard. Again, he does have a lot of pop. Don't let the looks deceive you. Because, again, I say this with the utmost respect. He has loose skin. He's a former fat guy, right? But he is, and again, don't let the loose fat slinging around, don't let that deceive you. He moves pretty well for a heavyweight. Because, again, this is a guy who legitimately cut half of his weight. He was 500, almost 500 pounds. I don't know if he was over 500 pounds, but he was a 500-pound man, and now he's cut half his weight, and now he's a professional UFC fighter. So I give a lot of credit to the guy there, but obviously he's a lot quicker now because this is a guy who's used to being 500 pounds, and now he's 260, 250. So he is somewhat quick for being such a big guy, and he does still have a lot of power. So I'm taking Steven Asplund here. It's a fighter I think the UFC can kind of get behind. He's going to win this fight. He's going to go somewhat viral, I believe, on the socials that he beat Sharaf because, now officially he's in the UFC. Yes, he won his last fight in the Contender Series, but it's just a little bit different now in the same warehouse, obviously, but now it's on ESPN. And this is the type of stuff we were talking about, right? With sending ESPN off on a bang, Steven Asplund knocking out Sharaf. I just don't think Sharaf's all that UFC caliber. While I do think Asplund is not, again, high level, but yes, Asplund's a UFC fighter, and he should go out here and knock out Sharaf in the very first round. On to our next fight. I can't believe this is on the prelims. This should be the feature fight. This is unbelievable, and I hope it gets changed. Why the hell is the UFC debut, who, by the way, nobody's talking about? Yaroslav Amosov is making his UFC debut, fighting Neil Magny, who just won again, by the way, against Jake Matthews. I know Matthews protested it, but I believe the victory is standing with Neil Magny, who's, by the way, now on a 2-fight winning streak. Keeps doing it. He's won 24 UFC fights, and now, welcome to the UFC. It's about damn time. Yaroslav Amosov. Imagine if he came here before he lost to Jason Jackson. Oh, the hype. If he came to the UFC before the Jason Jackson fight when he was 27-0, beat Storley. Storley was coming off the win over MVP at the time. Would have been massive. They unified the Bellator championships. Or hell, if he came here after he beat Douglas Lima, would have been huge. He was a dog and he beat Douglas Lima in that fight. He was an underdog and he won. But he lost to Jason Jackson. Jason Jackson kept him on the feet. And Jason Jackson kind of exposed Amosov's not the best striker. We know what Yaroslav Amosov does very well. That's grapple. He is a very overwhelming wrestler. And we saw the Douglas Lima fight. I mean, that fight wasn't even close, right? I mean, he outmatched Douglas Lima back in 2021. Lima was overwhelmed in that one. And a lot was made of the point of the fact, right, Amosov, I believe, still trains, trains, and fights out of Ukraine. And, he fought Lima, and then the war going on, did not fight for a whole year and a half because the war going on, couldn't travel. MVP was supposed to fight Amosov. They had to move it, obviously, to Storley for the interim belt. Storley, against what Bellator wanted, ended up beating MVP. Amosov beat Storley in their rematch, and then again comes back and loses to Jason Jackson. Does not get re-signed with PF Bellator because budget cuts, Don Davis. Amosov then goes to CFFC and wins his last fight against Curtis Millender. Again, this is a 40-year-old or 38-year-old Curtis Millender who's way past his prime, obviously, on a 4-fight losing streak or 3-fight losing streak. But nonetheless, though, Amosov wins by first-round submission. He is still an overwhelming grappler, a good jiu-jitsu practitioner, and a very good wrestler. And that's what he can do to you. Other good wrestlers, though, will be able to stuff his takedowns, like Jason Jackson. And Jason Jackson had the power on the feet and the striking to, again, put down Yaroslav Amosov and knock him out in the third round in a fight in which Amosov was a pretty sizable favorite. Amosov was a minus 450 favorite. Hell, again, the guy was 27-0 at the time. So now Amosov's going to turn to the UFC, and he gets buried on the Apex prelims against Neil Magny? Why is this not the feature fight on the card? Neil Magny, guys, with a win, goes into sole possession of the second most wins in UFC history, 2 behind Jim Miller. What? Nobody thought he was going to beat Jake Matthews. I thought he had no chance to beat Jake Matthews, and he found a way to win. Keeps on doing it. And he's got a chance to beat Amosov. I don't think he's going to do it, though. Because Neil Magny does get taken down a bit, but I don't know. If Mike Malot's able to take down Neil Magny at will, and I understand Magny eventually won the fight because Malott had no gas tank, and Magny won it in the third. I get that. But if Malott was able to get those takedowns against Neil Magny, I have to believe Yaroslav Amosov's going to as well. I still put quite a bit into Amosov. I know, again, the Jason Jackson loss was not great, and it kind of, I don't want to say exposed him, but kind of showed, okay, Yaroslav Amosov's not going to be this, uber prospect once he comes to the UFC, or he's not going to be, the face of Bellator, because obviously, right, they didn't even care to re-sign him after the Jason Jackson fight, to the point where he was fighting in CFFC, just to get another fight and get back into the American, promotions, right? But I do think Amosov's able to beat Neil Magny. This is a classic Neil Magny fight, man. They keep giving him these young guys coming up. I mean, we've seen it so many times, right? Shavkat, we saw this with Ian Machado Gary, Michael Morales, Carlos Prates. They always do this to Magny, and he fights guys who are at his age and at his level, and he finds ways to still win, but they're going to use the name of Neil Magny here to boost and pump up Yaroslav Amosov. I think Amosov's going to win this fight. I don't think Neil Magny has the striking to make Amosov pay in terms of, damage-based striking. Yeah, Magny's going to touch you, and he's going to volume you. I don't think he's going to really hurt Amosov all that much in the feet, and I don't think Magny is going to pose too much resistance to the wrestling. Yes, I know, again, Neil Magny has been in a million fights, and he out-grappled and out-wrestled Jake Matthews. That's all Amosov does, and he's coming into this fight with the sole game plan of, okay, I'm going out here to fight a guy who's had, 35, 40 UFC fights, almost, 35 UFC fights, I think, and I'm looking to just go out here and out-grapple him and probably submit him. I think that's what Amosov does. Does he actually get the submission? I'm going to go no. I think Magny's too difficult for him to sub, and I would not get close to laying the line that we're getting on Amosov right now. Minus 390 is ridiculous. Because again, Neil Magny can always get to you. And also, Magny's going to be way bigger than Amosov in this fight height-wise. Magny's 6'3", Amosov 5'11". Should not be an issue in terms of Amosov getting takedowns. But again, I think Amosov wins. I'm not confident at all. I'd completely stay away, obviously, with it being a Magny fight. But yes, Amosov wins his UFC debut. On now to our next fight, and a straight banger. These are the type of fights, well, the last fight too, but these are the type of fights we won, obviously, again, on the final ESPN Plus card in the Apex, in the small arena, in the small cage. Obviously, Apex is not going away next year. Great. But, if we just get one Apex every 2 months, I'm not too mad, okay? If we only 6 Apex cards a year, I can handle it. Anyways, we're getting Joanderson Brito and Melzik Baghdasaryan. Two guys who are in desperate needs of victories, and likely, again, the winner is going to pick up a huge win because it'll likely be by knockout. Again, Brito and Baghdasaryan, two guys who are on losing streaks. Brito coming off back-to-back L's to William Gomez and Pat Sabatini. Now, he got absolutely robbed in the William Gomez fight, I thought. And the Pat Sabatini fight, well, he got absolutely mauled. Pat Sabatini did not let Joanderson Brito get off of his back. 14 minutes of control for Sabatini. It's just what he does. You may not like it. It might not be entertaining, but that's what Sabatini does in every single fight. And now he's found himself at 8-2 in the UFC again after his win over Shepe Mariscal in New York earlier, or I guess just a month ago. Anyways, Joanderson Brito is coming off back-to-back L's after he was initially booked against Dan Ige. We know how much Joanderson Brito hates Dan Ige. We can tell by all of his call-outs, and I will replicate it. I'm not going to say the full word because I don't want to get demonetized, but all right, Joanderson, congratulations on winning this fight. You beat Jack Shore. Who do you want to fight next? Dan Ige, mother! And then, you know what word I'm going to say. He said it 3 times after his fight. Why does he hate Dan Ige? I don't know. He was supposed to fight Dan Ige, but then Brito had to pull out the fight, and then Ige obviously got to fight Lopez on, 6 hours notice. And Brito's career's kind of gone downhill since. He loses to Gomez in a fight he probably should have won in a co-main event, and then he loses to Sabatini. He just gets out-grappled. There is no threat of the grappling here. Melzik Baghdasaryan doesn't know what a takedown is. Perfect. If anything, Brito's going to be the one shooting. I think he's going to stand and bang, and I think he's going to knock Baghdasaryan out. Guys, Baghdasaryan's wins in the UFC are, let's read them. Colin Anglin. Colin Anglin's a 10-7 fighter now. Probably never UFC caliber. Bruno Souza, again, I don't know how that guy found his way in the UFC. He's been winning fights, though, so actually maybe he's going to get another shot. He just beat Wilson. Oh, yeah, he did beat Ishihara. He's probably actually going to get another shot. He's the bantamweight champion in Uriah Faber's promotion right now. But Bruno Souza was not good in the UFC. Baghdasaryan gets subbed by Josh Kalibau. Okay, Kalibau, who I don't think fights in the UFC anymore. He beats Tucker Lutz, who definitely is no longer in the UFC. And then his last fight, he got knocked out by John Silva, very predictably. Joanderson Brito is going to walk down Melzik Baghdasaryan and knock him out. Baghdasaryan again, and his wrestling defense not very good. Buchecha took him down in the Contender Series. Lutz was taking him down. If Brito is somehow in trouble and really, if Brito can't fight in range against Baghdasaryan, sure, I guess he's going to take him down, and that's always something we have in the back pocket. But Baghdasaryan, again, looks really good against low-level fighters, and with all due respect, UFC low-level fighters like Anglin, Souza, and Tucker Lutz. Against higher-level guys and guys who hit very hard and actually pose a threat of knocking him out, I'm not impressed at all with Baghdasaryan. Kalibau submitted him. Silva knocked him out. And sure, again, Silva compared to Lutz, Souza, and Anglin is a very large discrepancy. But Brito hits like a truck, man. Brito's got good leg kicks, as we saw in the Jack Shore fight. Literally split Jack Shore's leg open to the point where he got a doctor stoppage due to shin cut. He hits like a truck like we saw in the fight against Weston Wilson. I know Weston Wilson is legitimately the lowest level UFC fighter of all time, but his last fight in China was absurd. But Brito's going to walk Baghdasaryan down and knock him out. Baghdasaryan's really kick heavy. He's kick oriented. I don't think that's going to work against Brito. Brito's going to close, throw big power shots, start winging stuff, and I just don't think it's going to go well for Baghdasaryan. I think he's going to get knocked out. We saw the Gene Silva fight. Silva was styling on him. He was pushing forward, and Baghdasaryan really did not have an answer. If you put Baghdasaryan on the back foot, he's not that great, and I think Brito's going to do absolutely that. Where Baghdasaryan's able to take over in some of his wins in the UFC against Lutz, Souza, and Englund, he's walking forward. Brito's not going to allow him to push forward in this fight. So I'm going to go with the Brazilian here. Give me Joanderson Brito to win this fight by first round knockout. Maybe he does go for his fourth call out of Dan Ige, and maybe he'll finally let us know why he doesn't like Dan Ige at all. But honestly, he's not in a position for that fight yet. So we shall see. But I'm going to go with Joanderson Brito to beat Melzik Baghdasaryan by first round knockout. On now to our next fight, in which could potentially be a number one contenders fight for a specific fighter, and that is Julian Robertson. Do not rule out the possibility of Julian Robertson fighting for a UFC championship with the win here. It's a real thing. Now, it is still unknown what Zhang Weili is going to be doing next. I will say Zhang Weili does not fight that often. She fights once or twice a year, so who knows if that's going to be Mackenzie Dern's next title defense. Dern probably should be back around March or April-ish of next year. Will that be Zhang Weili? Will it not be? I don't know. If it's not Zhang Weili, they're going to be looking for title challengers. Obviously, Tatiana Suarez is probably the number one answer you can go to, and that's an interesting fight stylistically. Jiu-jitsu, obviously, versus really great BJJ versus really great wrestling. I think Dern wins that fight. Another fight you could go to legitimately should be Julian Robertson, if she's able to go out there and beat Lemos, because who else could you give the title fight to? Can't be Yao Xiaonan coming off a loss. Genji Hoba just lost, obviously, for the belt. Lucindo, no. Suarez, maybe, right? But it's a huge fight for Robertson, who at no point ever did I think Julian Robertson was a legitimate, title challenger. She's one or two fights away. Because even if she doesn't get it, and it is Zhang Weili next, and I understand, again, Julian Robertson likely doesn't stand a damn chance against Zhang Weili, Julian Robertson will put herself in a spot where she's fighting Tatiana Suarez, and the winner would go on and get a title shot. I've never really thought of Robertson versus Suarez. It's just an interesting fight. I think Suarez probably gets her, but who knows? Anyways, Julian Robertson has to take advantage, or has to, complete and win this fight first against Amanda Lemos, and I think she's going to do it. Guys, I think Lemos is washed. I think she is. Lemos is 38, coming off the loss to Tatiana Suarez, where Lemos does come on in the third round, and that's, again, Tatiana Suarez's whole thing. She's good early in the fight. She wins the first two, and then she completely just breaks down as the fight goes. She doesn't have a gas tank. She banks the first two rounds, and then she kind of says, third round, don't care. I've already won the first two. 10-point must system, gotta give me the fight. And that's what she did against Nina Ansarov, did it again against Amanda Lemos. It's been a staple of the Tatiana Suarez career. If every fight was 3 rounds, she would probably be the world champion. Well, she only won 1 round against Zhang Weili being the first. Anyways, though, Lemos is coming off that loss on Noche and now fighting Julian Robertson. Well, if you're Julian Robertson, you're doing the same exact thing. You're doing the same exact thing, but instead of Suarez, you're looking to submit her. In terms of, obviously, Suarez won by decision. Robertson's looking to finish Lemos. It's going to be difficult. Lemos does have decent jiu-jitsu, but Genji Hoba put her on her back and really made her work. Put her on her back in the first round, put her on her back again in the second round, and eventually got the armbar. Took the back and got the armbar. So I think it's there for Robertson. I really believe it is. I think Lemos is about done. She's 38 years of age, and yeah, she had the y'all must have forgot type performance against Yasmin Lucindo, but I just think that was Lucindo not being ready for the moment. Main card of a UFC pay-per-view, a lot of hype around you. You're supposed to beat the veteran in Lemos, and Lemos goes out there and just out-scrambles her and out-wrestles Lucindo. Lucindo wasn't ready for the bright lights. And obviously, right, Yasmin's coming off a win now. But I still don't think Lemos' ground game is all that great, right? Watching the Genji Hoba fight. Watching Zhang Weili dominate Amanda Lemos. It's a perfect spot for Robertson to be in, again, against a fighter who we've said, doesn't really have a ground game at all. I think it's a perfect spot. I really think it is. Robertson was supposed to fight Yasmin Lucindo here, which that's dangerous. I think Jillian probably still would have won, but I'd much rather fight Lemos than Lucindo, even though, yes, Lemos beat Lucindo. Stylistically, way better matchup for Robertson. Robertson's not going to, manage. She's not going to deal with the striking game. She's got Dean Thomas as her head coach. They are coming into this fight with obviously, I would assume, a great game plan. Why take chances in this one? If you can take down Lemos, like we've seen Tatiana Suarez do, like we've seen Vina Genji Hoba do easily, Zhang Weili, every fighter takes Lemos down. Michelle Watterson took her down. If you're able to take Lemos down, you're fine. Lemos, she tries to defend takedowns with guillotine chokes. And obviously, every once in a blue moon, that's going to work. if you've got a great squeeze and a great grip on that. But better wrestlers and good grapplers are going to find their ways out of guillotine chokes, right? I think we're perfectly fine here. I'm going to go with Jillian Robertson to win this fight, and I think she gets it done by submission, man. I mean, this is one of the elite finishers in the women's weight classes, and yes, we are now talking about a potential for Jillian Robertson to be getting a UFC title fight. Let's not forget, Robertson's been around the UFC for a while. This is going to be her 20th fight in the promotion. She made her UFC debut all the way back in 2017 through that, Gagey versus Alvarez Ultimate Fighter season to bring in the women's flyweight division. Don't look now, Jillian Robertson's only 30 years old, and she's now in her prime. Robertson could be moving her way into a title position real soon. If not, she's going to get a title eliminator next against Tatiana Suarez, a fight that I've never really thought that was ever going to happen. But I'm going to take Jillian Robertson to submit Amanda Lemos in the second round. I can't believe we're at this point. But yes, Robertson's finding herself close to the belt, and it's stylistically a great matchup for her against the Brazilian in Lemos. On to our next fight as we go to the heavyweight division, as we've got Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Marcus Buchecha. I'm going Kennedy Nzechukwu here to win. And yes, I did not build any suspense for this prediction, but I kind of find it odd it's only minus 155 for Nzechukwu. Now, I never, go out of my way to bet minus 155, and obviously we're going to have our best bets video later in the week on Thursday, and I'll give you odds, obviously, that are much better than minus 150 slash minus 155, wherever Nzechukwu's at. But I don't know why he's only a minus 155 favorite here. This, to me, is absurd. Guys, I was told, okay, and I watched film on Buchecha, I read up about Buchecha, people are hyping him up. I'm told this guy, tremendous BJJ guy, right? This is a ADCC world champion level grappler. He's going to come into the UFC and he's going to give these fat heavyweights problems because, he's a very built dude. Look at Marcus Buchecha, right? He's a built dude. He's an athlete. He's going to come out here and he's going to Josh Hoke at these guys because these guys can't grapple. They can't wrestle with an athlete like Buchecha. And Buchecha comes into the UFC and loses to Martin Buday, who I understand got cut from the UFC after being 7-1. He's getting an Octagon. I don't know if it's a title fight, but he's fighting Will Fury. It's for the Octagon Championship. Actually, at the end of December, he's gonna be fighting again Will Fury for the Octagon title. But this guy again, Martin Buday, who is probably the least respected 7-1 UFC fighter ever, because he'd barely get by, and the UFC cared so much about him. He was 7-1. They said, "Sayonara, we don't want you anymore. Go to Octagon. We don't give a damn." Buchecha looked like crap against Buday. The dude wears out after the first round. He looks decent in the first round. We're thinking, okay, hold on. He can't get takedowns, but all right, striking doesn't look too bad. Gets a takedown in the second round. Okay, there we go. Third round, obviously gets outstruck in the first round, right? But second round gets a takedown. All right, top position. Third round, he's done. Cardio's left him. It's abandoned him. He's getting tired. Oh, we're screwed, right? I was told this guy, again, high-level jiu-jitsu, he's got Buday on his back for 3 minutes, can't submit him. Maybe I'm underestimating Buday a little bit, but I don't think I am. I'm supposed to be impressed about this guy. He's 36 now, that's the thing. Buchecha's 36, got into the UFC really late. He may take down Nzechukwu, and I know, again, the reason why some people are taking Buchecha is because Nzechukwu just got subbed. Well, okay, he got subbed by Walter Walker, who literally has a chain that has a heel on it, and he's telling his opponents, "I'm going to heel hook you before the fight," and every fighter he fights falls into the same thing. They all get heel hooked. 4 in a row, they've all been heel hooked by Walker. Put him in the top, give him a top 5 fight. I don't care. Give him Volkov. I don't know. Give him Almeida, legitimately. See what happens. Give Walker Almeida. Let's see how good he really is. Or give him Blade. See how good he really is. Right? But anyways, everyone gets subbed by Walter Walker. I don't care that Nzechukwu got heel hooked. Everyone does. Buchecha isn't going to roll for a heel hook, obviously, like Walker is. He's going to look for a takedown and try to drag Nzechukwu down. Nzechukwu's got... This is one thing I can say about Nzechukwu that I can't say about a lot of fighters at 265. He's got a really good gas tank. He's going to be there in the third round, automatically. Right? He's a light heavyweight coming up. He's still not weighing that much at heavyweight, right? He weighs 235. So he's a lighter heavyweight who has a decent gas tank and can go deep into fights. Something I can't say about Buchecha and something I can't say about a lot of these, outside of the top 15 heavyweights. Nzechukwu also has crazy power on the feet. Yes, his chin's not the best. It's not like Buchecha's going to knock him out. Buchecha throws. He doesn't throw with too much power. Grappling's there 100%, but can he get his Nzechukwu down? Nzechukwu actually a very tough guy to take down. 80% takedown defense rate in the UFC. He's a tough guy to bring down. The only heavyweight yet to take him down is Walker, but Walker pulls for the heel hook, and obviously, again, that's the takedown via the heel hook, essentially. I think it's a difficult fight for Buchecha. I really think it is. I mean, I just think he's outmatched. I don't understand the matchmaking. You go from losing to Budai to now getting Nzechukwu. And sure, again, maybe they want Nzechukwu to win. I know the UFC does think fairly highly of Nzechukwu. They've made like docus on him before, and I've seen like feature programs on Nzechukwu in the past. Seems like a great dude. Watched a whole feature on him, taking care of his mother who has ALS. But anyways, like I don't know why this fight is. I don't know why they made this fight for Buchecha. Maybe it's lucky and submits Nzechukwu, but Nzechukwu got really good takedown defense, and the way you beat Nzechukwu, honestly, is by throwing big power shots at him and hope you knock him out, because his chin's not great, and he doesn't have the best striking defense. But a guy like Buchecha is not going to do that. Let's not forget, by the way, the one loss Carlos Ulberg has in the UFC, Kennedy Nzechukwu. Who picked that as a plus 260 underdog? That was me. Anyways, give me Kennedy Nzechukwu to beat Marcus Buchecha by first round knockout. I don't think Buchecha is really the UFC caliber. And, great jiu-jitsu guy. Not going to beat an all-around mixed martial arts fighter like Nzechukwu. On to our next fight, and this one's interesting. Costa takes on the Pirate. The last Pirate, excuse me. I think he changed. He's just been the Pirate. He's the last Pirate now. Morgan Charriere. Great fight, man. This is a really good one. Again, this is a sneaky good card. I will give the UFC credit. Like, I just felt like the Magny Amosov fight should have been way higher on the card. But Morgan Charriere versus Costa is a tremendous fight. Because Morgan Charriere is so underrated. Legitimately, I really like watching Charriere fight. The fighting is Nate Landwehr. I mean, all action. I mean, that is an all-war type fight. Dude knocks out Gabriel Miranda, loses to Nathaniel Wood in a decent fight. First fight in the UFC, Shepe Mariscal, great fight. Beats Manolo Zincheni in his first fight. What happened to Manolo Zincheni? One of the few Italian fighters in the UFC, has one fight, doesn't fight again. Anyways, Morgan Charriere is fun, man. Every single Morgan Charriere fight is really competitive, and he swings. Here's the thing. Costa is going to look to take him down. I'm a little concerned for Charriere here because of the run Costa's been on. And his striking is evolving too. Because of the point now where obviously like Costa's setting up those takedowns with the striking. I mean, obviously, again, that's what every fighter tries to do. But now, like, it's really like he hides his really good wrestling, a really good jiu-jitsu game with the striking that he possesses. Back-to-back victories over C-Rod and Julian Erosa. Now, again, the wrestling took a back step and the jiu-jitsu took a back foot, took a step back from the jiu-jitsu, obviously, the offensive wrestling in the C-Rod fight, because C-Rod was the one initiating the takedowns. Melk fought well enough, though, to win that fight by unanimous decision. And then Julian Erosa fight, right? Erosa's the one pushing the pace on the ground, trying to get the takedowns, and Costa's the one winning on the feet. So we might see a striking matchup between Charriere and Costa. I personally believe that would be stupid for Costa to do. Your striking's getting better. You're beating guys like Erosa and C-Rod on the feet. That's great. You're still a BJJ, primary fighter. And you don't want to get into a war on the feet with this guy, right? Charriere is a dog. He takes damage. He keeps walking forward. And really, I mean, the way to beat him is to grapple him. Or either that, or you're at such a high level striking wise where you can really avoid the war, avoid the kill or be killed fight, and just jab him, stay at length, or stay at range, and mix in your takedowns too, obviously. But I mean, again, stay at range and not be willing to engage in that war type of fight with Charriere. I don't know if Costa's, again, at an elite level in terms of striking to do that. In terms of wrestling and grappling, though, yeah, I think he is. It's something that we have, again, not had to see, or Costa hasn't had to do in his last two fights. And really, the Feely fight, Feely shoots on him, and Costa gets the submission, which was a questionable decision. But it's just his jiu-jitsu is very good. Again, pure wrestling-wise, is Costa the best? No. I think he's going to find a way to get this fight down. For as great as Charriere is and how fun he is to watch and underrated he is as well, he has lost 11 times. His record is 21-11-1. And yes, the dude had a crazy regional run. I mean, he fought some tough fights. I mean, remember when Soren Bach was supposed to be a high-level prospect? I mean, I guess he's still 16-1. What happened to Soren Bach? Does Soren Bach fight anymore? That's interesting. Anyways, but he fought Soren Bach. Soren Bach 16-1, lost to him, right? Lost to Jordan Vucenic, lost to Paul Hughes. Like, fought the best guys in Cage Warriors. That's why the record is where it's at. But beat some really good guys in the regional scene as well. Beat a guy in William Gomez by submission, by heel hook on the regional scene as well. Like, he's got good victories. And just good all-around fights. I think, though, Costa's going to get him. Would I bet on it? No, not at all. I know this is probably the most even fight we are going to get betting-wise, but I think Costa does it. Charriere has traded wins and losses since he's gotten into the UFC. Well, Contender Series win, lost in his first fight against Mariscal, beats Miranda, loses to Wood, beats Landwehr. I just don't think Costa's going to engage in that, blitzing type fight with Charriere. I think he's going to change levels, and I think he's going to clinch. And again, I think he's going to change levels and shoot. And that's where ultimately I think Costa is going to pick up the victory and likely get it done by decision. Don't get me wrong. Charriere is going to have his moments. That's just how he fights. Like, he's going to find those small windows to break through and have big moments. But I do think, again, on a 10-point must system, and I think just in general, Costa is going to dominate a majority of the rounds. I think Charriere is going to have moments, but I think the rounds are going to have to go to Costa. I think he wins it by decision. Again, am I confident enough to bet on the fight? Absolutely not. I would not bet on Morgan Charriere and Melt Costa. At least, again, from what I'm seeing right now, I might change my mind on Thursday. But I'm going to go Melt Costa to beat Morgan Charriere by decision. Should be a very fun fight, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see, really, again, if Costa can't get the fight down, what happens? That should be really fun. So it's going to be a fun fight, but I gotta go Melt Costa by decision. On to our featured fight in the middleweight division, we've got the UFC debut of the brother of Michal Oleksiejczuk. Of course, I'm talking about Cezary Oleksiejczuk, as he's taking on Cesar Almeida. Should be a good one. Almeida 7-1, obviously professionally in the UFC. He is now 3-1, with the only loss being a split decision competitive fight to Roman Kopylov. Thought Kopylov won that one, but still, Almeida coming off a huge win earlier in the year, fought in the first fight card of the year in the Apex on the Dern Hebos card. Now he's ending the year with his second fight in the UFC, or second fight in 2025 in the Apex as well, on the last card of the year. Anyways, he's coming off a huge win over Abdulrazak Al-Hassan. Both guys get knockdowns. Almeida withstands that damage and comes out and gets the knockdown later in the first round against Al-Hassan after already getting dropped, and wins the fight by first round knockout. It's a pretty good fight for as long as it does last. Almeida, again, 3-1 in the UFC. Victories over Dylan Budka, Ihor Potieria, and Al-Hassan, and the loss being a competitive fight against Roman Kopylov in his second fight in the promotion. As for Cezary Oleksiejczuk, coming off a first round knockout win over Theo Hag, it's a fight that we thought Oleksiejczuk was going to win. Hag was a little, untested on the regional scene, I thought. Hadn't fought really great guys. And Oleksiejczuk went out there and knocked him out in the first round. Immediately blitzes Theo Hag and eventually gets the finish. Outstrikes the guy 17-0. Oleksiejczuk lands every single strike he throws. It was dominance. Haig, though, again, shoots for a takedown, and it's game over because Oleksiejczuk ends up on top and just starts pounding away on the guy and ends up winning. Oleksiejczuk, don't let that fight confuse you. Like, Oleksiejczuk has a really good striking game. Is it good enough, though, to compete with Cesar Almeida? Because we know how good Cesar Almeida is, right? This is a, glory kickboxer. He had the trilogy with Alex Pereira, lost the first one, won the second fight, lost the third fight against Poatan. But it's a credentialed glory kickboxer who comes into the UFC with a 4-0 record, got a wrestler in his first fight, got taken down, and put on his back for 4 minutes in the first round against Dylan Budka, but it bounces back in the second. Can Cezary Oleksiejczuk deal with this? He is a favorite in this fight, and a slight favorite. I think, yeah, and here's why. Almeida's about to turn 38. Again, another guy like we talked about earlier with Buchecha, obviously from different backgrounds, right? Almeida coming from kickboxing, Buchecha coming from jiu-jitsu, but a guy who just got into the UFC super late in his run or in his career, right? It's the guy who dedicated most of his life or prime peak, athletic career to kickboxing. And, like we've seen before with Poatan, like, Yusri Belgri, these guys come to the UFC later in their careers, and obviously Poatan kind of broke through. Actually, Adesanya broke through for everyone to the mainstream glory guys, and then obviously Poatan followed, and everybody else is following. It feels like, again, the ghosts of Pereira's past keep coming back to him in the UFC. Obviously, none of them can ever get on the level Poatan is at, but you get what I mean, right? It's just Almeida is so old. He's 37. Oleksiejczuk, first fight in the UFC, the younger brother of Michal Oleksiejczuk. And Michal Oleksiejczuk, I believe has said he's better than him. I don't think if I'm not mistaken, so again, like, I think he said he's better than him. I believe so. Because I know Jourdain also said his brother was better than him on the Contender Series, but I believe Michal said that too. I could be wrong. It might have just been. I don't know if both of them said it or if Michal said that Cezary is better than him too. I'm not sure. But I know like Cesati was like calling out guys that Michal Oleksiejczuk had lost in the UFC, lost to in the UFC. He was talking a big game, after his fight. Like, I want to fight every single guy and avenge my brother. So I don't know if Michal said it outright like Charles Jourdain did, but I know Cesati is like, supposed to be a very highly touted guy. He's 16-3. Striking looks good. Can he take down Almeida is the thing, though. Because do you want to be kickboxing with this guy for 15 minutes? Not entirely. I think it can be done, but obviously you're going to make your life a lot easier and give yourself a way better chance to win if you can mix in some wrestling and some grappling, too. I think Oleksiejczuk can do so, right? I think Oleksiejczuk can mix in the wrestling in this fight and just keep Almeida guessing. And if he can do that, I do think it's going to open up a lot of pathways for him. Can he get a finish? I'm going to say no. I'm going to go decision. I know Oleksiejczuk doesn't usually win by decision, but Almeida doesn't get finished either. I mean, fought Kopylov and got knocked down by Kopylov, but didn't get TKO'd. I'm going to go decision win for Cesati Oleksiejczuk. Another fight, though, that could really go either way, in my opinion. I would not be surprised in the slightest if Almeida pulled it off, but I am going to go with the slight favorite here out of Poland in his UFC debut in Cesati Oleksiejczuk to beat Cesar Almeida by unanimous decision. On to the co-main event, and boy, is it a good one. Again, yeah, they did stack this card quite a bit for an Apex event. Giga Chikadze versus Kevin Vallejos. What a fight! Kevin Vallejos, again, a highly touted prospect, currently in the featherweight division, getting his first big test. I don't believe Giga is still ranked, but this is the pathway and this is the ticket to a top 15 fight afterwards. Kevin Vallejos gets a massive step up in competition, fighting the Ninja in Giga Chikadze. Chikadze is 37, I just want to put that out there. But Kevin Vallejos has been on a run. He's so young in his career. He's 23 years of age. Thought he'd get a finish against Danny Silva. I don't want to say he struggled in that fight because he didn't, but Silva, brought it to him. And I thought Vallejos probably won every single round. There's an argument to be made about third round Danny Silva because Vallejos does, slow down a little bit in that third, and Silva's gas tank actually stayed with him. He was very aggressive in trying to get takedowns and was still throwing, very actively as well on Vallejos. But Vallejos ultimately wins the fight by decision, regardless of how you score it, 3-0 Vallejos or 2-1 Vallejos. He does win the bout. This is a very skilled striker. A very skilled striker who throws very hard and can put you down. Vallejos has one loss ever, guys. And it's on the Contender Series when he was 21 fighting John Silva. That's the dude's one loss ever. After losing to John Silva, wins a couple fights in the regional scene, beats Cam Teague by first round knockout in the Contender Series the year after. Cam Teague, by the way, got another shot in the Contender Series. Lost to Le'Veon Douglas, who's very good as well. Don't forget about that guy. He's going to be very good. But anyways, Vallejos beats Cam Teague, knocks out Sung Woo Choi impressively in 3 minutes, and then beats Danny Silva. And now, they are putting a rocket to this dude's back. They're giving him Chikadze. Should be interesting, because we know how good of a kickboxing game Giga Chikadze has, right? I know he's lost 3 of 4, losing to Cater and getting his face beat in, beating Caceres and losing back-to-back to Arnold Allen and then David Onama. I thought he beat Onama, personally. I thought Chikadze did more damage. Again, at the time of watching, I thought he won. Rewatching, I don't know if I can say the same thing. But anyways, Giga fought competitively against Onama. Did miss weight, though, so, it is what it is. But, hey, worked for Bruno Ferreira. Marvin Vettori, pal, we should retire. All right? I'm sorry, Marvin. Before you get CTE, because I know you're never going to get knocked down, you can keep walking forward. I want Marvin, he's already, an interesting guy. I want Marvin to be able to live a very long and happy life. I don't think he should be fighting that much longer. Because, I don't know, CTE is real. Anyways, though, Chikadze does lose to Onama. Now he gets Vallejos. Kind of feels like the UFC is trying to get Chikadze out of here, but at the same time, should be an all-action type fight. And Giga's probably not getting knocked out. I mean, the beatdown Calvin Kattar put on Giga Chikadze. Look at Chikadze's face at the end of the fight. It's not the same, but kind of the inverse of what Kattar happened to him against Holloway. Happens to Chikadze, bloodies his face up. Kattar wins every single round. It's the first card of that was 2022? Yeah, first card of 2022 in the Apex. They had a really cool fight poster for that card, too. I don't know why they haven't gone back to cool posters like that. And Kattar beat the crap out of him, man. But still, at the same time, Chikadze doesn't get finished. So he just keeps walking forward, right? Fights Arnold Allen. Allen's beating him. No finish. So I don't know if Vallejos is the first guy to do so. If he is, that's massive. And I think the UFC is hoping that Vallejos can be the first guy to beat Chikadze. I'm going to say no. I think he outclasses Chikadze personally, okay? It's just Chikadze, and we've seen it over his last couple of fights. It's a progressive thing. But I think, again, the prime of Giga Chikadze ended when he couldn't beat Kape. Because at the time, you got to realize too, right? Chikadze was coming off a knockout victory in a main event against Edson Barbosa. He had a lot of hype around him, right? Georgian talent, high-level kickboxer, former Glory kickboxer, right? Touch of death. The Giga kick was a big thing at one point in time. Kape was coming off a year layoff after Max Holloway 50-42'd him. Giga was a huge favorite. I'm not gonna lie to you. I picked Giga to win too. I picked him, I think, to win by decision. I picked by decision. And Kape went out there and just schooled him. Giga came back and beat Caceres, but lose to Allen, lose to Onama, and again, we've seen him just slow down since the Kape fight, obviously. I mean, hell, look at the dude's age. He's 37 years old. I gotta go Vallejos here. Vallejos is quicker, Vallejos is going to throw harder, and Vallejos is going to be more efficient, and he's going to do more damage with his big shots as well. And I just don't know how Giga's going to keep up. Again, with all the damage he's taken over his career, and at his age too, guys. Kevin Vallejos is 14 years younger than Giga Chikadze. Yes, again, you love to have experience, but that makes a difference in terms of a fight where these dudes are going to war. Vallejos is turning 24, actually, I believe, tomorrow, so happy birthday. But again, currently, as I'm recording, this guy's 23, about to turn 24, very young fighter who is fighting at a very high level, has knockout power. I don't think he's able to find that knockout against Giga, but I do believe he beats him on the feet. I'm going Kevin Vallejos to remain undefeated in the UFC and go to 17-1 professionally. Vallejos is going to beat Giga Chikadze by unanimous decision. On to the final UFC fight of 2025 in the flyweight division main event, Brandon Royval taking on Manel Kape. Big time fight. Like I said earlier, I don't think the winner of this fight is going to get a title shot. There is very clearly, though, a number one contenders fight that the winner of this fight can have. I will reveal it at the end of the video after I make my pick. But Royval versus Kape, knock on wood, this fight actually happens, because we know what happens with Manel Kape fight weeks and just fights in general. He pulls out quite a bit. If Kape does happen to pull out of this fight, I will make a video for Royval's replacement, assuming he gets one. And I hate to mention it, but who would be that replacement? I don't know. Do they have a replacement ready? Because if they don't, we're going to see Chikadze and Vallejos elevated to the main event. Off the top of my head, I don't even know who would be available, honestly. Maybe Bruno Silva, Tim Elliott. It'd be Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott would definitely take it, 100%. So it would probably be Tim Elliott, Brandon Royval. Regardless, though, hopefully that does not happen, and this is the fight I want to see. Kape finally getting a main event spot. If you remember, at one point in time was booked against Mateus Nicolau in the spring of 2024 in a main event, at the Apex, but Kape pulled out. And instead that fight went to Alex Perez, and Alex Perez got to knock out Nicolau instead, and Kape's hype kind of faltered after losing to Mokaev. Anyways, he's built himself back up in the best way as Kape has won back-to-back fights after losing to Mohamed Mokaev. He beats Bruno Silva, and in all fairness, he was going to fight Royval in March. Royval pulled out. Kape instead gets Asu Almabayev, beats Asu Almabayev by third-round knockout. Kape's then booked to fight Royval in June. Kape pulls out with an injury. Royval then gets to fight Josh Van. If you remember again, if Kape beat Royval, he would have been fighting last week against Pantoja, and maybe Pantoja breaks his or dislocates his shoulder/elbow against Kape, and maybe Kape's the champion right now. Who knows how things go, right? Butterfly effect in the UFC. Anyways, though, Kape now getting Royval after Royval's last loss to Josh Van in an incredible fight. One of the best fights of 2025. It is all-out war the entire fight. You think maybe Royval is knocked out at the end of the fight. Van thought he knocked him out, but it was just, again, the final buzzer. It was, it was the end of the 15 minutes. But what a fight. The output in that fight was insane. Royval actually does outstrike Josh Van, but Van did have the more damaging blows. I had rounds 1 and 3 Josh Van. I don't think that's that crazy of a take. I think everyone had it 1-3 for Josh Van. 3-0 Van's a little weird, I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, the output's crazy. Significant strike total, 215 for Royval, throws 467 strikes. Josh Van, 204 significant strikes on 305 attempts. Absurd pace, absurd output. And now we get, again, Royval in a 5-round fight. And he just had a war like that against Van that tore the house down in Vegas, International Fight Week. How do you reward him? Go to the warehouse. Go to the warehouse and fight Manel Kape, which is a dangerous fight, because we know what Kape is capable of. His last 2 fights have been nothing short of fantastic, right? He enters the flow state. Final fight card of 2024, and again, final fight card of 2024 was in Tampa. This year, it's in the Apex. Whatever. Gets into the flow state against Bruno Silva. That means they're doing Jimmy V week because I assume they're still doing the Jimmy V Week thing. This is the final ESPN card, but they're still going to do it. They're doing V Week in the Apex? They've always done V Week, Orlando, Tampa, way back when in DC that one year with the Rosenstraight card. They're going to do the Jimmy V Week thing in the Apex? That's crazy. Anyways, and I guess they have to. Regardless, Manel Kape entered the flow state in the Bruno Silva fight, right? Goes out there and he's, ducking and dodging, obviously, everything. The head movement was insane in that fight for Kape, right? He does not get hit, essentially, in the second round. Enters the flow state, TikTok edits galore. Kape knocks out Bruno Silva in the third round. Finishes Asplund Mabayev in a main event. Again, I kind of forgot that fight was a main event, but main event spot, third round TKO finish over Asplund Mabayev in March, and now here he is in another main event spot against Royval. Royval, we know the output's going to be crazy, and we're probably going to see this fight just on the feet. I don't think either guy really wants to grapple. We know Royval doesn't want to wrestle. Kape is not a big wrestler either, so that means we're probably going to get a striking fight the entire time. Yes, Royval's output's going to be huge. I think Kape's going to almost match him, though. No one's really gone out there and just fought Manel Kape like that. His only loss in the UFC, losses are Pantoja in his first fight, expected, Nicolau robbery, and then Mokaev, who just laid on him. Right? So, and pulled his shorts too. No one's ever fought, actually, no, Mokaev actually, he didn't lay on him the entire fight. It was just boring. Nothing happened. Anyways, Royval's going to come to fight Kape. It doesn't matter who Royval's fighting. It doesn't matter, again, who the opponent is, what he's done. Royval fights the same every single fight. He's coming in there and he's going to try and knock you out, but it's going to be a lot of volume. He doesn't possess the most power, but he's going in there and every Royval fight is fun. Again, Royval's a legitimate case to the title. Guys, he beat Tyra 2 fights ago. Now, it looks like Tyra's an automatic for the title shot because he beat Moreno, but if you're Brandon Royval, you're saying, wait, hold on. I fought Josh Fan as the number 1 contender. I fought Josh Fan on short notice. I did something for the company. I beat Moreno as well. I beat Moreno in a 5-round fight. I beat Tyra. I beat both those guys. And now I beat Kape, who no one's beat since really Pantoja or since Mokaev. Why don't I get the next title shot? New champion, you don't have to book me in a third fight where I've already lost twice to Pantoja. New champ, he should get the fight against Josh Fan. I don't disagree. I think he's losing, though. There you go. I think Manel Kape's going to beat Brandon Royval. Because if Royval, and I would expect nothing less out of Brandon Royval, fighting the way he does against everybody, fighting Manel Kape, he's going to eventually get knocked out. Eventually, Kape's going to put him down and TKO him. It's going to happen in the third round. Royval's output is great. But if you force Kape to fight you, he will keep throwing back. Limited fights we've seen in the UFC, but Felipe dos Santos brought it to him. Kape keeps throwing back. Bruno Silva fight, that was Kape being the aggressor. We have never really seen, though, in the UFC, someone just be aggressive towards Manel Kape. He's going to throw back. Watch him beat Kaya Sakura in Ryzen. Knocks out Kaya Sakura in the second round, right? There are spots for Kape when he fights guys who throw big at him, and he responds. Yeah, the volume could, again, overwhelm Kape. I just don't think so. I think if Royval keeps throwing the way he does get hit. You saw in the Josh Van fight, if you take 204 significant strikes from Manel Kape like Royval did against Josh Van, he's getting knocked down. You saw, again, Van put him away at the end of the third round. Obviously, he got to the scorecards, but Kape's not going to let Royval get past 3. I'm going to go third round TKO win for Manel Kape. Starboy enters now a title eliminator fight, and I have just the fight for it to be Manel Kape versus Kyoji Horiguchi. Their rematch of 2017 on New Year's Eve in Ryzen. Horiguchi won the initial bout by head and arm choke. This is the perfect time for the rematch, and where's a better location than the Super Saitama Arena in Japan? Main event, Tyra Van. Dana's talking about it. Hasn't confirmed it, obviously, but they're talking about Japan for Tyra and Josh Van. Probably a fight night, maybe a main event, maybe a pay-per-view main event, but probably a fight night. Fight night main event, Van versus Tyra. Co-main event, where they did it the first time. I think did they fight in the Super Saitama the first time? Kape and Horiguchi? I believe so, right? That's where they usually have their cards. Yeah. Co-main, Kape, Horiguchi 2, winners fight. It writes itself. There's no other contenders at this point. Pantoja's out the picture for now. And yes, I believe the UFC, the activity that Josh Van has, and if it's Tyra, same thing, they will have 2 title fights before Pantoja's back. Pantoja's probably going to be back, my guess is December next year. It's going to be a full year until we get Pantoja. Pantoja will be back on the final card of 2026. So you're going to get an opportunity here for 2 title fights. I think you do one in Japan, legitimately, February. Tell Kape and Horiguchi, yeah, hurry up. You're getting back in the octagon quick. We need to fill out a card, and you're going to get a chance where if you win, you're getting a title fight automatically, right? Van and Tyra took no damage. So February, they already announced the quarter 1 schedule. March, probably. March, maybe April. April's fine. April in Japan. Tyra versus Van, main event in Japan, Super Saitama Arena. Co-main, Manel Kape, Kyoji Horiguchi. Winners fight, let's say, August, September-ish. Then Pantoja comes back in December or January. Boom. I just mapped out the entire flyweight division going forward. There's literally no other contenders. So it's a perfect Tim Elliott. I don't care. Tim Elliott, go fight Usyk. Go fight Moreno or Albazi. Perfect situation. Oh, Almabayev's in there too, but he's not gonna fight for a belt. So I just mapped out the entire thing. I think Kape's gonna knock out Royval in the 3rd round. I think it sets up for a fight with him and Horiguchi on the same exact card in the Super Saitama Arena in Japan with Tatsuro Taira and Josh Van for the world title. Folks, thank y'all for watching our final UFC predictions here of 2025. We're going to be back again tomorrow for our PFL predictions and Thursday as well for our best bets. And of course, the week after for more PFL Africa predictions as well. But again, folks, thank y'all for the support all year long on the UFC predictions videos. We'll be back again in January for Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett, first ever UFC Paramount card. The pay-per-view era is dead. It's great. So we'll be back next year for the full predictions, but make sure to join us again. We're going to have a lot of content on Greedo Plays MMA during this little 6-week break that we do get. And again, I just want to thank you guys, of course, moving over to the new channel this year. A big difference. We started this year on the main channel, Greedo Plays, moved over to Greedo Plays MMA, and I'm glad you guys can have joined me on this new channel as well. So again, I just want to thank you guys for all the support all year long. Again, we'll be back next year for Gaethje and Paddy, but we are definitely going to be around quite a bit in this little off season we get here on Greedo Plays MMA with the PFL and additional UFC futures content that I'm going to look at starting after the PFL Africa card. So, folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you did disagree with any of the picks. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.